Me, Myself, and I in Dubai. The story of a father, an engineer, and an OFW dream. Preface. This book is not about fame, fortune, or recognition. It is about quiet sacrifice, simple courage, and a father's determination to build a better life for someone more important than himself. It is the story of leaving home, not for adventure, but for responsibility. Of working in foreign lands not for luxury, but for love. Of building impressive structures for the world, while building hope for one child back home. Me, Myself, and I, in Dubai, is the story of an ordinary Filipino man whose life was shaped by sacrifice, discipline, and a love that never calculated its cost. Chapter 1. Roots in Bataan. In 1969, I grew up in a simple home in the town of Pilar, Bata, and as the eldest among 4 children. My mother was a public school teacher, and my father worked at the rural health unit. We were not rich. Every peso had to be stretched, every expense carefully considered. When we were young, we never experienced celebrating our birthdays the way other families did. There were no cakes, no parties, no special celebrations. It was not because my parents did not care, but because they were doing everything they could just to make both ends meet. I remember the days when the 6 of us had to share just 1 liter of Coca-Cola overflowing with ice, carefully dividing it so each of us could have an equal sip. It was a simple moment, but it became a symbol of our life, limited, disciplined, and shared. Despite our situation, every Christmas, my parents made sure we received new clothes, our pamasko. Those clothes were not just gifts. They represented the extra effort my parents made, the sacrifices they endured, and the love they gave us without hesitation. I grew up watching them work harder than life was probably asking of them. Through their example, I learned that life was not about comfort, but about perseverance. And somewhere in those difficult days, a young boy began to dream of building, of creating, and of becoming an engineer. Chapter 2. Becoming an Engineer. In 1986, my path led me to Bata and Heroes Memorial College, where I took up Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I was not the smartest in the room, but I was determined. I learned that success is built on perseverance. Engineering was not just a course I chose. It was a lifeline. It represented hope for my family and for a future that did not have to be shaped by limitation. College was filled with struggles, endless problem-solving, endless drawing, and endless doubt. But every difficult equation, every failed attempt, strengthened my determination. I learned that intelligence meant nothing without discipline, and that persistence was a quiet form of courage. Slowly, the language of structures, loads, and materials became a part of me. Engineering, I realized, was not just about numbers or designs. It was about responsibility. Every line drawn on paper could one day affect human lives. Every calculation mattered. Graduating with academic recognition was not just a personal victory. It was a promise to myself that I would use this knowledge for something bigger, service to my family and community. When I finally earned my license, there were no grand celebrations, just silent gratitude and pride. I felt gratitude for my parents, my family, and for every small sacrifice that led me to that moment. It was not the end of my journey. It was only the beginning. Chapter 3. The Early Years in the Field. My first real experiences as an engineer began in construction projects in Bataan. I worked under different local contractors, learning the realities of the field one step at a time. It was here that I truly understood what it meant to be responsible for a structure that people would use, rely on, and live in. These early projects were where I sharpened my skills, built my discipline, and learned how to deal with pressure, limited resources, and real-world challenges. I learned how to solve problems with what was available, how to communicate with workers, suppliers, and clients, and how to carry responsibility even when support was minimal. It was simple work, honest work, and it shaped my character more than I realized at the time. Then, one day, I found myself standing in front of classrooms as an instructor. I discovered that sharing knowledge was just as fulfilling as applying it. I began shaping minds while still shaping structures. There were moments when I was given the chance to handle small residential projects on my own. These were not grand developments, but they were personal. Standing on the site of a simple home that I was helping bring to life gave me a sense of pride that no title ever could. Each house meant shelter, safety, and a beginning for another family. Life was busy, demanding, and exhausting, but it was honest work. Those years did not bring me wealth or recognition, but they gave me something far more important: resilience. And that resilience was what prepared me for the decision that would change everything. The decision to leave home and become an overseas Filipino worker, not for myself, but for my son. Chapter 4. Entering Married Life. Love entered my life in an unexpected and quiet way. I met my partner through one of my students, her elder sister. An ordinary connection that would later become the most important relationship of my life. There was nothing dramatic about how we met. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions. It was simple, sincere, and natural. From friendship, something deeper slowly grew. Our conversations became longer. Our understanding of one another grew stronger, and in that gentle way, love found its place in our hearts. We did not have much, but we had commitment. And in 1994, we made the decision to begin our life together as husband and wife. On a simple morning in October 1994, we went to the Orion Municipal Hall for our civil wedding. There were no extravagant decorations, no long list of guests. What mattered was not the crowd, but the promise we were making to each other. In that small office, surrounded by ordinary walls, a lifelong bond was quietly formed. Later that same evening, around 8 p.m., we went to St. Peter, Martyr of Verona Parish Church in Hermosa, Bataan. It was already dark, peaceful, almost empty. At the altar stood only me, my partner, and Father Boy Braga. No choir, no entourage, no witnesses filling the pews. Just the three of us, in the stillness of a sacred space. There, in that quiet church, Father Boy Braga performed a short but meaningful ceremony. No grand music announced it, no applause followed it. Yet in that silence, something sacred and powerful happened. Our union was placed in the hands of God. 2 years later, in 1996, we reaffirmed that union in a formal church wedding at Street Michael, the Archangel Parish Church in Orion, Bataan. That was the day when our marriage was celebrated openly before God, family, and community. It was no longer quiet and hidden, it was witnessed and blessed. Looking back, I realized that our marriage did not begin with luxury or grand spectacle. It began with simplicity, faith, and quiet determination to stay together through whatever life would bring. And little did I know then that the next and most important role of my life was already waiting for me: fatherhood. In 1998, God entrusted us with our greatest blessing, our son. That single moment changed everything. Every plan, every dream, and every decision from that point forward would no longer be about myself alone. My life was no longer just about being a husband or an engineer. It became about being a father. And that one role, more than any title or profession, would soon become the reason behind every sacrifice I was about to make. Chapter 5. A Father's Turning Point. The moment I held my son in my arms, everything shifted. Every dream I had become centered on him. I remembered my own childhood. The limitations, the sacrifices of my parents, the absence of simple luxuries. And from that memory, I made a silent vow. My son will not grow up the way I did. Not because my past was unworthy, but because his future deserved more. I wanted him to grow up with security, comfort, and opportunity. That was when I knew I had to make a difficult decision to leave home and work abroad. Becoming an overseas Filipino worker was not a dream of adventure. It was a decision made by a father's heart. Leaving home would break me. Staying might break his future. So, I chose distance. I chose sacrifice. I chose love. Chapter 6. The Journey to Palau. My first overseas assignment brought me to Palau in 2004, and I quickly realized that working abroad was far more difficult than it looked from the outside. One of my greatest struggles was the language barrier. Many of the workers were Chinese, and they were not fluent in English. Simple instructions often turned into misunderstandings. Every task required extra patience, effort, and clarification. Though I was hired as a civil engineer, I had to perform multiple roles at the same time. I worked as a surveyor, CAD operator, designer, foreman, and estimator under one construction firm. There were days when I felt like I was doing the work of an entire team all by myself. Despite the heavy workload, I was earning only $700 a month. It was not much, considering the sacrifice and the distance from home. But every dollar I earned had a purpose. My son. There were nights when homesickness overwhelmed me. I cried quietly, longing for home, for family, for the life I had temporarily abandoned in the name of love and responsibility. But even in those weakest moments, one thought kept me going. This is not forever. This is for him. Palau did not make me rich, but it made me stronger. It prepared me for Dubai. Chapter 7. Me, Myself and I in Dubai. When I arrived in Dubai in 2006, the skyline was already filled with towering ambition. It was a city where the impossible seemed normal and the extraordinary was expected. Life in Dubai was far from the glamorous image people often imagine. Behind the shining skyscrapers and impressive skyline was a life built on routine, discipline, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. My day began at 4:00 the morning. By 5 a.m., was already preparing to leave, my body still carrying the weight of the day before. I arrived at work around 6 a.m., where another long day of responsibility began. As a quantity surveyor, I handled measurements, cost estimates, reports, coordination meetings, and complex calculations. I was fortunate, and at the same time deeply challenged, to be involved in some of the most iconic projects in the world. Among these were the Dubai Mall, known as the largest mall in the world, and the Burj Khalifa, the tallest tower ever built by human hands. I also worked on other major developments, such as offices, hotels, resorts, and restaurants that helped define Dubai's skyline. While the world admired their beauty, I saw something different. Saw long hours, relentless pressure, strict deadlines, and an unending demand for precision. Time moved quickly, but exhaustion never left. I often left the office by 7 p.m., reached our accommodation around 9 p.m., and finally went to bed at 10 p.m., knowing that only a few hours later the same cycle would begin again. During my first years in Dubai, communication with home was difficult. Internet access was limited and expensive. There were many nights when, after a long day of work, my co-workers and I had to walk for almost 30 minutes just to reach the nearest internet cafe. There we waited, sometimes in line, just to send a short message or to see the faces of our loved ones on a screen. We lived in overpopulated villas and workers' camps, squeezed into small rooms with men from different countries, cultures, and languages. There was hardly any privacy, little comfort, and very little space to call our own. But no one complained. Every person there had the same reason for enduring such conditions. Family back home. Life wasn't just physically exhausting. It was emotionally challenging too. As a Filipino, I often felt the weight of discrimination. Locals and Westerners were sometimes dismissive or indifferent toward us. Simple requests were met with impatience, and respect was often reserved for those from Europe or the West. At times, it felt like our efforts were invisible, our skills undervalued. Yet, I learned to persevere quietly, letting my work speak for me, while navigating the subtle but real divides in the workplace and society. In quiet moments, I remembered my childhood. the shared 1 liter of Coke, the absence of birthday celebrations, the life without luxury. I did not want my son to experience the same kind of deprivation. That memory became my fuel. It pushed me to work harder, to endure more, and to give more. I tried, as much as I could, to provide everything my son needed and many of the things he wanted. Not out of excess, not out of pride, but out of love. So I lived a simple life in a land of luxury. I denied myself comfort, because my comfort was knowing that my son was living better. My world in Dubai became small and focused. Work, sacrifice, purpose. My wants became unimportant, and my world narrowed down to one purpose: to give my son a better life than the one I had. There were many nights when loneliness crept in. There were moments when the weight of distance became unbearable. But in Dubai, it was often just me, myself, and I, along with a quiet prayer that everything I was doing would one day be worth it. And in my heart, it always was. Because everything I did in Dubai, even while working on the world's grandest structures, was never truly about buildings. It was always about my son. Chapter 8. Coming Home with Purpose. In 2018, after many years abroad, I finally came home. In 2019, I accepted a position overseeing the physical plant and facilities of a college. I managed renovations, supervised constructions, and ensured the safety and development of the campus. The world was already beginning to change. Fear and uncertainty were spreading. But inside me, a stronger voice whispered that it was time to be home. For the first time in many years, I was no longer just a voice or a face on the phone. I was physically present, beside my family and beside my son. I also returned to teaching, sharing the knowledge and experience I had gathered over the years. But the most important part of coming home had nothing to do with work. It was time. Time to sit beside my son. Time to laugh with him. Time to just be his father again. For another 1.5 years, I was fully present in his life. A gift I did not realize was already priceless. Chapter 9. The Silent Struggles and the Pandemic. The year 2020 brought the COVID-19 pandemic. The world became quiet, fearful, restricted. On the night of the 30th of April 2020, we were in his room. A Korean drama was playing, while he was calmly playing an online game, Monster Hunter. Everything felt normal. Later, I found him unconscious. In full panic, we rushed him to the nearest hospital, passing through strict checkpoints in a world locked down by fear. At 9:35 p.m., he was declared dead. Although it was not caused by COVID-19, cremation was required during that time. We searched desperately for ways to prevent it. By grace, his remains were kept in a chapel in a nearby town. With limited visitors and no flowers, we still managed to give him a decent mass and lay him in his final resting place with dignity. That night shattered my world. But one truth remains. I was there with him. Chapter 10. More than an engineer, a father. Through everything I have lived, I now understand something very clearly. Engineering was my career, but fatherhood was my destiny. My true success was not measured in structures, towers, or awards. It was measured in silent sacrifices, in love without limits, and in a heart that would give everything for one child. He may no longer be beside me physically, but he lives in my heart, in my memories, and in the way I continue to live and serve others. Loss changed me, but love still sustains me, and love never dies. Chapter 11. The Heart That Became My Heaven. There is no equation that can explain the loss of a child. Yet I hold on to the one answer that gives me peace. God allowed me to come home in time. I was beside my son. I shared his days. I was present in the final chapter of his life. Now, I choose to believe that he is in a place of light, freedom, and peace. No more limits, no more weakness, only rest and eternal calm. I continue living not in bitterness, but in quiet honor of Him. I strive to become better, kinder, gentler, more grateful for the simple gift of time, because that is the man He deserves me to be. Chapter 12. A Prayer for My Son. Dear God, I entrust my beloved son into your loving arms. Hold him close, where there is no more sorrow and only eternal peace. Wrap him in your light, and let him feel the love that never leaves him. As I feel his presence in every beat of my heart, give me the strength to continue and the comfort of knowing that we shall meet again in your perfect time. Until then, please watch over him for me, Lord. Amen.